thanks to 3 Is Company, the podcast, by hosting this little interview video with me, the 5-element hip-hop kiddo Mugzy, and just to tell my love, appreciation story, sprinkle a little bit of knowledge for the hip-hop culture universally, so you'll have another friend, fan, follower here in Sydney, Australia, the land down under, like there's no other. So thanks once again, guys. All the best. Yo, what's going on, people? It's Mugzy, upcoming hip-hop artist from Sydney, Australia, of the land down under. And right now I'm going to do this kind of vlog interview video about myself, exactly the 5 elements, hip-hop kiddo Mugzy from Sydney of Australia, to tell a little bit about myself, how I got into hip-hop, how I escalated it and evolved myself into the man I am today, and just how basically hip-hop saved my life. And I'm thankful every day that I came in touch with this, in my sense, beautiful culture, because, you know, like I always say, if somehow hip-hop didn't exist anymore, then you've lost me and my identity as a person. But yeah, I'm going to take you viewers and whoever's listening to this audio, a trip back into the past, 14 years ago, little Mugzy at the age of 14, an early teen of adolescence, and take you through the journey, maybe what I've done and, you know, who I've become along the way, because I'm 28 going on to 2019 for 2020. When I was 14, you know, the early thousands era. People say it was the platinum era because, you know, a lot of the artists were wearing the platinum chains and the baggy clothes, and, you know, we had the 3 horsemen at the time, which was Eminem and 50 Cent and Dr. Dre, which was like the pinnacle of its time. You know, we had artists like Jay-Z and, you know, Rockefeller and Damon Dash and Cameron and Beanie Siegel. We had, you know, the South, which was Chameleon and Paul Wall with the mixtape game. Man, we had like the Diplomats. We had, man, so much talent coming out of the early thousands, man. But I remember, man, being sort of that teen, man, that was kind of an outsider starting off in my adolescence years, man. You know, had no identity, you know, was sort of picked on a bit and, you know, kind of bullied and, you know, kind of messed around with a bit, man. And that sort of led me onto a path of depression and anxiety and doubting myself and just rolling with the wrong crowds, man, like just trying to find my identity, man, of like whoever was pushing me aside would give me that sort of chip on my shoulder mentality of, you know, like why is the world, you know, like fooling around with me, man, you know, why is the world, you know, hating on me, man, you know, like is it because I'm an outsider? Maybe I'm not have the same opinions and goals or, you know, the same outlooks on whoever was doing it around the time, man. And that really, they always say, man, when you're a teenager through high school, you really, you know, find what you want to be in your future, you know, and carve you into the man or, you know, the woman you are, or whatever the case may be you are, you know, later on in life to be. And if you're really, you don't get that starting off, you know, that sort of push or that, you know, I guess you can say, start with that, you're kind of on the back burn, you really fall into a deep, eternal, dark depression, man. And it's a scary thing because, like a lot of kids, you know, they fall through the suicide routines or, you know, they do something crazy and, you know, there's no turning back from those paths, man. And I really ran into that sort of cycle of, you know, thinking negative and, you know, thinking that the world was black and, you know, and just dark and not really appealing to me. And that's why I say the early thousands, man, was so powerful at that time, man, because like obviously we had the decades of the generations, man, but something about the early thousands, man, you could not run away from it, man, of hip-hop. Like it was like the pinnacle of its marketing era. Like you had it in music and, you know, clothing and movies and video games and sporting athletes and, you know, just everywhere you went it screamed hip-hop at the time. And I remember, man, being like having such a chip on my shoulder that, you know, I could sort of relate to these artists of having that expression and that pain through whatever they're going through, whatever their communities or, you know, their societies or their worlds like were sort of going through, they could, you know, take that negative influence and flip, you know, they could not influence, but take that negative, you know, sort of outlook and flip it on its head and throw it into a positive outcome, man, which was rhythm and poetry of the power of hip hop, and like, you know, changing their messages through this art form and this culture of hip hop, man. Obviously, being a white boy, man, from the suburbs, Eminem was obviously the key at the time. Like, you know, when 8 Mile dropped, I always say every white boy from the suburbs, man, wanted to be a rapper when that film dropped. And some, you know, went down the Wigger path, man, you know, like the whole Malibu's Most Wanna Be rad. And then some really took the culture and really wanted to maybe sort of find their place in life through this culture and this art form. And I was one of those people, man. Like, I didn't want to see a therapist, man, or pop a pill to make me happy, man, because I knew that wouldn't have worked. I wanted to find an identity within myself, and because I had nothing of that, man. I had no interests, I had no self-well-being about myself or self-persona about myself, and maybe that was the reason why I got kicked down a lot. And when I came into hip-hop, it gave me an identity, it gave me an art form and a purpose and well-being in life. So, man, like at first, obviously, Eminem, being a white boy in a black domain of culture, man, I guess you can say related to not just the inner white kids, but the suburban white kids like myself, man. And I really resonated with that anger and aggression he had in his, you know, like the Slim Shady LP and the Marshall Mathers LP, and the Eminem Show and so on and so forth. But starting off, man, I was like, you know, why not try and like write like a rhyme or like write a rap? And my early days, man, were writing exactly how M used to write, like that real twisted, psychotic wordplay that he used to do, like the Slim Shady kind of vibe. And that was only therapeutic to get my anger out there, man. Like that was, you know, that wasn't deliberately who I was. It was just more to get the anger out there. And I remember coming home from school and these generational hip-hop programs would come on and it would show you the decades of the 70s, like the Boogie Down Bronx, Grandmaster Caz, Grandmaster Flash, you know, Cool Herc, African Bambaataa, Melly Mel, and just the birth era. And they would have like the 80s, which was, you know, LL Cool J, Eric B. and Rakim, you know, Run DMC, and like KRS-One, and, you know, Ice-T, and even like the likes of, you know, to whoever's listening to this audio, man, the first ever white artist, man, to come into the scene of hip-hop. I'm not talking about Vanilla Ice, I'm not talking about the Beastie Boys, I'm talking about MC Search and Pete Nice from Third Base, man, like, I mean, Third Base, man, to whoever's not listening to this audio, or maybe listening to it and being schooled with this historical of just what I've preached, man, you've just got the gas face, man, because you really got to learn about some white artists in the game, man. But MC Search, he doesn't get enough recognition of what he deserves, man, and if it wasn't for him, we wouldn't have Nas, we wouldn't have Illmatic, which is one of the greatest hip-hop albums of all time, in my opinion, and Nas is definitely up there as a top MC, a top 5 MC to me, or to anyone that wants to do hip-hop, man. So we got MC Search, and then we had the 90s, of course, which was the golden era, man. You know, and I could flood a whole list, but people say the golden era because there was so much talent, and, you know, you had to have the bars, man. You had to have, you know, you had to have your messages, you had to have your lyricists, your punchlines up if you wanted to claim to be a rapper, or, you know, claim to even come into a cypher, or claim to even be hip-hop, man. See, like, that's why I say, man, with these kids now doing this mumble trap, man, if like you're back in the 90s, man, there was no way that shit would fly. Like, that would get swept under the rug ASAP, man, like, and you'd be obliterated by incredible MCs. Man, I could go down the list, like, you know, Tupac, Biggie, that whole Death Row and Bad Boy movement, the West and East Coast. And then you had the West, which was like NWA, Dr. Dre, and Snoop Dogg, man, and you had, like, you know, the Puerto Ricans, like Big Pun, I was going to say Big L, but he was a classic, man. Big L, Wu-Tang Clan, man, like Onyx, Naughty by Nature. I could go down a whole list, man. Cypress Hill, man. I mean, there was so much talent. And I'm not just talking about the real lyricists, dude. Man, we had party times, man. You know, like Fresh Prince and, you know, Kid and Play and, man, like, you know, TLC. Like, I'm even talking about R&B style that had like that tinge of hip-hop to them, man. And to whoever's listening to this audio, man, I'm probably taking you back here through time, man, of these golden memories, man, of classic tracks that still hold up today. And then you obviously had the early thousands, which was the era that I mentioned. But I remember just being so mesmerized with this culture over the decades and the years, man, and wanting to be a part of it. Even though I was just starting off as 14, man, I wanted to be a part of this movement. You know, even though it started USA kind of based, that's the birthplace, man, is the New York style. And then, you know, like as America as a whole, man, to how it's become so universal. I wanted to be a part of that, but be gratefully respected as not just a white boy trying to rap, but as a prominent rapper or MC. And I remember seeing these OG pioneer fathers like, you know, KRS-One, Ice-T, or Chuck D from Public Enemy, and every time they'd be interviewed or, you know, do like a little set before you know, their performance, man, they always preach that hip-hop was brought up on authenticity and uniqueness, and, you know, that's what the foundation and the flavor is of what makes this culture so great. It's like, you know, you can have your influences and your idols and your, you know, like your peers to sort of, I guess you can say, find your identity, and, you know, have them as kind of like a backbone to, you know, really carve your own craft. But if you're mimicking and only just doing what they're doing, you know, and not finding your own passion, your own material or your own message, you're really going to be frowned upon when it comes to the house of hip-hop, man. Because you're not really finding your true calling. You're not, you know, coming to the table with what you could do. You're only doing what they can do, you know. And so that was really insightful to me at the age of 14, because I mean, like at the age of 14, even to kids probably listening to this audio, man, yes, you are in that narcissistic mindset of materialistic things. You know, you want the money, you want the fame, you want the girls, you want the car, the money, and like everything, and you don't really care about it as a culture. You just see what's cool and what's now and what's hip, you know. But with me at that age, and I'm going to preach this to whoever's listening, you know, something sparked my brain of when I see these pioneer fathers talk so much passion about this culture they created. It sent something to me to be like, that materialistic thing is cool, but to have a culture is an overall welcoming that. Like it's an overall acceptance more than a cool thing to be. If you have more passion for the culture and what it's done so universally to, you know, just the materialistic things or the fashion and, you know, all that sort of jazz, you're more a prominent form in hip-hop compared to someone just rapping for, you know, that kind of garbage, man. And that really woke me up to be like, why don't I have a message and tell my story, you know? Like, and then my first album release, which was Ride or Die, and it was like, there was like a lot of tracks in there, like, you know, King of the Underground, Keep on Rapping, you know, No More Pain, and like all these, you know, inspirational tracks of how I was telling my story. Even though it was demo material, it was very rough. Like when I listen back to it, it is very, very rough material. Like it's almost cringeworthy, you know, to put it on. And sometimes my homies put it on to take the piss out of me. But I was just starting off, man, and it's, you know, you hear my little, you know, teenage voice trying to rap along and trying to write my own rhymes and stuff. But it's you know, it's a learning curve, man. And I brought it out there in the MySpace days, and, you know, people chewed it up, and, you know, some people loved it, some people hated it, man. And I just kept grinding, you know. This is early days of social media or MySpace, like when you would have your little band profile, but you know, in the outside world, you would have to physically hand out, you know, hard copies, and like, you know, go to, you know, maybe youth centers and local DJs, and even maybe fake RDs to get into clubs, and, man, just so they could play like your record, or house parties, man, and hand the local DJ your tape and get that weird look as like, who are you? I've never heard of you before. But you gotta, you know, talk a whole lot of game just to get, you know, your name played. And man, I did all that with my rough demo of Ride or Die, man. And I look back at those times being so colorful, because, you know, it was something that was fueling me, like knowing that I'm doing what probably my idols did before they were famous. Like, they were just handing their rough demos out and doing the cyphers and doing the open mics and stuff, and just slowly building that recognition of being a rapper or being known as this culture of hip-hop. And that fueled me to a point of just like, there's no turning back. Like, when you hear those first people say, are you a rapper? Or are you doing hip-hop now? Yeah, you know, spit a bar, and then like their ears peak up or their eyes peak up, and they're just like, dude, this guy's got bars. It's that local little celebrity buzz of, man, I can't put the mic down. I got to keep writing, and I got to keep being insightful and know more about the culture that, you know, like I don't know about. And that's what led me on to my second album, which released in 2013, which was Understand Me. And Understand Me, man, was more an add-on to Ride or Die. Like, Understand Me was, you know, the first album. Why not tell about my story and my inner self well-being? And then Understand Me is, look, I've got the power to do this. Why not tell about an overall atmospheric, you know, pride, like, you know, message is, whoever's listening to this album, maybe they can take something out of it that they're going through. Like, yeah, I can relate to Mugzy, or I've been through the same dramas and the same upbringings and the same, you know, obstacles. I've done the same things. So that was more the, you know, Ride or Die was more about me. Understand Me was more about, what am I giving back to society, whoever's listening to my music. And a lot of chewing my ass right now of saying, you know, when are we going to get a third album? But you know, I've done so much, man. Like, I've fallen into, you know, so many categories, which is, you know, music, acting, youth work, meet and greets with celebs I'll never see the light of day, you know, growing up and listening to their albums and somehow being in the same room as them and being in, you know, face to face and having a convo. Like, never thought I'd see that as the light of day. And that's all just because of the power of hip hop and believing in myself and just giving this culture my all, you know. And I mean, I'm thankful along the way, because I mean, this stuff I never thought I'd see do. Like some of the things I'll mention is, you know, 2 albums, working on a 3rd at the moment, you know, radio play, interviews, features, name drops worldwide, across not just Australia but across the land, you know, and across like USA, UK, Canada, Japan, like a whole ton. A documentary about me, like Sydney Film School here in Australia, like one of the biggest, did a documentary. Like, it came up, you know, where I live, did a 3-day doco to submit to the film festivals, because they wanted to know about my career and what I do and how I embrace hip-hop to the core. Like, that's so unbelievable to me. And I mean, I've taught hip-hop and taught music and, you know, programs to UNSW, which is University of New South Wales, one of the biggest universities here in New South Wales of Australia. And, you know, there was, you know, kids, I mean, you know, teenagers that somehow stumbled across my name and heard my name get around, and they're like, look, we love this Mugzy dude, why doesn't he, you know, do like little workshops with us, and let's see if we can like learn something about this and learn more about it. And I got the, you know, potential to do that. And shout out to D2MG that, you know, really got me on board with that. Did a few programs, and I know dudes, man, that studied their whole life to be, you know, like in the profession of university, or you know, to be lecturers and stuff. And man, I just fluked it. Like, somehow I'm standing in a UNSW classroom and talking to like 30 students about this culture that I love. Like, that's the power of like how hard I hustle, man. And I've done a whole bunch of other stuff, man. I wouldn't want to go down the list and bore the viewers, but I've done some pretty incredible things within my career, man. And I'm thankful along the way, because that's just how hard I grind and hustle, and the acknowledgement and achievements I get along the way. When it comes to Australia, man, we have like a lot of love for the hip hop culture here. We, you know, whatever comes out about the culture, or because it's such an Americanized thing. It was brought up in the USA, born in the USA, but it's become so universal. Like, you got Japan with the, you know, the DJ, I mean the b-boying and, you know, the sneakers and the clothing. You know, you got UK with the grime scene and the battle rap scene, and you got Australia that just takes a little bit of everything and, you know, like puts it in a pot and just assembles it into our own way, and we love it, man. We've got the battle rap league over here is pretty gnarly, man. You know, we've got pretty gnarly MCs that are coming up out of the game, man. We're not talking that Iggy Azalea bullshit. I'm not going to get into detail with it, but to real hip-hop heads know, she had a golden opportunity and she spat in our face with that female B-Rad wigger bullshit, man. So Iggy is not on our plate, man. You guys can have her. She's not even hip-hop, man. She's hip-hop. Exactly. Do you see my pronunciation? Not hip-hop, hip-hop, man. You know, she's just a cornball, man. So yeah, not Iggy Azalea, so don't claim her to be Australian hip-hop. We have real MCs down here in the land down under. You know, home of the Crocodile Dundees and the Hugh Jackmans, and of course the 5-element hip-hop kiddo Mugzys, and whoever wants to be an MC within Sydney and Melbourne and Queensland, Brisbane and Gold Coast, and I could go down the whole list, man. But you can see how much passion I'm talking with hip-hop, man. You know, just a kid that had nothing, man, like had no self-well-being about himself, doubted himself, to just someone who, like, now people recognize me, man, and like they see me and they're like, yo, you're that hip-hop dude, right? Or you're Mugzy. Like, even if they don't know me by name, like, they just know I'm associated with this culture somehow through word of mouth or my page, or just seeing me around, and know that I love this culture and craft to its fullest, through its full potential. And I'm talking about the real hip-hop. I'm not talking about this phony, corny, what is it, clout, or, you know, just trying to get your Instagram buzz up. I'm talking about the real roots in the culture. And to whoever's listening to the audio or even interviews that I do, you know, when they interview me, or, you know, vlog about me, that they become so surprised and thrilled that I'm so secluded here in Australia, like across the pond, and they're like, you know so much about the history, or have so much respect of what's come before you. Even the dudes that probably don't get enough shine that they do, you know, like the founding fathers, but you still give them, you know, praise. I'm almost choking up because it's such a powerful culture that I love. You know, and I haven't been in New York, I haven't been in the Boogie Down Bronx, I haven't been to 1520 Sedgwick Avenue, even though, you know, I've given it a shout out in my track Aussie with an American Attitude. But hopefully 2020 someday I'll be there and, like, you know, breathe in that historic vibe, that historic block, you know, of just what carved the way, you know, of this culture that I love so dearly. And it's such a powerful thing. Like, I get giddy. I get giddy when I see these pioneer fathers, or these real MCs, you know, bar for bar, like who I've mentioned. And, you know, like, even though people say, oh, they're old, yeah, they're old cats, you know, they've had their time. Not to me, man. They're still shining bright in my eyes, man. To me, like, you throw like a Tekashi 6ix9ine, that snitch bitch, in there, or you throw a Lil this or a Shorty this, or some tattooing your face up and, you know, wearing dresses and skinny jeans and all, like this whole era, man, of like clout rap, whatever they call it, man, just to build a Instagram buzz or a SoundCloud buzz, man. SoundCloud rap, that's corny to me, man, because they're exploiting something that was beautiful and turning it into something that's materialistic and nasty, man. And that's why I pray, you know, I shun them down, and I bring the real OGs and the real MCs and the real hip-hop heads back up again. Like I'm going to preach in this audio, man. I know the pain of what it becomes to be an artist, of grinding and hustling for opportunities. You know, because I know dudes that bust their ass in a 9 to 5 and the dream's only a limelight on the side. And meanwhile, you have this mumble rap that's saying nothing on a track and touring stadiums, man, and exploiting this culture and making a living off it. That's criminal to me, man. Like that's like a criminal going scot-free, in my opinion. And to whoever's listening to the audio, you're probably thinking, whoa, Mugzy, that's a bit bold, but that's how generally I feel. You know, when you can have someone that's full of buffoonery and stupidity and go viral, and then all these vlogs and people are like, he's the next big, you know, hip-hop superstar, and meanwhile you've got like probably the next Nas working a desk job, man. Like, you know, you could probably spit like the maddest 16, have this mad talent, but he's not getting it, and he's probably only got like 300, you know, views on his, you know, freestyle or something. Like, that's criminal to me, man. And that's probably showing, like, that film, what is it, with what's it called, Idiocracy? That's what we're living now when it comes to the hip-hop community now, man. We're living in an idiocracy time, like, you know, in an idiocracy society, man. And that's why I preach for those artists that have a dream and want it to become a reality, and I preach to bring that true form of hip-hop back, of having a message, having a style, having just a raw grit of, don't be sensitive, man, and don't be a bitch about anything. Like, that's what, you know, fight the power. That's what Public Enemy did, you know, like what NWA did, you know, what Two Live Crew did, what, you know, like Ghetto Boys did, like, you know, like all these legendary dudes that would just stick the middle finger up at you and be like, man, get out of here with your sensitive society, man. But now it's like, do not care what we put on the plate. It's just like, you know, we can snitch on each other. Yeah, I'm mentioning the bitch. We're snitching on each other. We're doing all this radical stuff, and we don't care about who paved the way and what we exploit because we're getting money. That to me is damaging. That to me is disregarding and disgracing the culture of what came before us, man. To whoever's wants to claim to be hip-hop, or you know, hip-hop opens their doors, or, you know, somehow just wants to be a part of it, man, do your homework, man. Learn who paved the way, learn the generational years or how it's become so universal, and appreciate, like, you know, everything about it. Not just rapping, I'm talking about 5 elements, man. Like, you know, rapping, MCing, DJing, b-boying, graffiti, and of course the 5 which people tend to forget is knowledge, because knowledge is key when it comes to the hip-hop community, man. People say it's 4, I say it's 5, because keeping that culture alive. And man, that's all I can say. I can't preach that enough. It's not about your SoundCloud buzz, it's about loving the culture. That's the true buzz right there. Yo, check me out at Mugzy, Mugzy, but to worldwide viewers, that's Mugzy. Support my movement, keeps you up to updates with interviews like this, who I get to meet along the way, you know, opportunities along the way. And if you're an upcoming artist, or you want someone to check out your music, or maybe point you in the right direction in maybe your avenue or a better direction, whatever the case may be, hit me up at an inbox. I try and get back to everyone, but all I do is support real hip-hop, 5 elements, knowledge, and I don't stop, and that's what I live for. Hopefully whoever's listening to this audio really can hear that through, you know, my voice and stuff. So thanks once again, guys, and keep supporting real hip-hop. That's all I can say. Yo, what's going on, people? It's Mugzy, upcoming hip-hop artist from Sydney, Australia, off the land down under. And right now I'm going to do one acapella video on my track, Understand Me. Exactly, understand the 5-element hip-hop kiddo Mugzy for Money-Minded Records and Entertainment. Shout thanks to you guys, man, for getting back to me, because any exposure is great exposure. We're getting my name out there to the world, whether it be here within Australia, worldwide. It don't even matter if it literally gets me, my name Mugzy, out there to the world. I've done my job properly.
On the hip-hop music, just breathing that air for something to use it. It's amazing how these people look at you different, because you're not the same, man, it's just so infant. What do you want me to be, just like you? Nah, 1 + 1 for me doesn't equal 2. How is it when this world works, but these people don't pull you in, so all it does is hurt? No respect and no love. There will never be a change when these people will all rise above. It's a democracy, so approximately my rage will burst out, and all you have to do is just stop with me. Increase the peace at least for once so we can breathe without all. Yeah, getting teased, cause right now we are all crying in the rain, ripping our hair out, going insane, yeah. You don't understand me. Comprehend me, yeah, come on. You don't understand me. Now I'm gonna be talking about myself, a lonely wolf, and you're all the wealth. Pointing the finger is like pulling a trigger, blow my brains out. When you call me wigger, you go figure. F you to the pussy, see the baggy jeans and chains that label me like I'm some kind of funny. See, why? Because my skin is white and not black. It's the love for hip-hop, not to be labeled as that. It's a disappointment for your enjoyment as a joke. I feel like grabbing my hands around your throat to choke. I know it's scary, but that's the very thing I'm intent to do. If it comes to that, man, there's no stopping me to you. We all go a little mad sometimes, maybe because all the haters know how to push all the bad lines. Why? Because they just don't like who we are. So what? We are fine to become an inner star, yeah. You don't understand me. Comprehend me, yeah, come on. You don't understand me. Why is it when these people say respect all, but they turn into two faces walking down the dark hall? It's because they don't have a change of heart. All they love to do is rip people apart. Kissing is the mission, giving their suicidal ignition a thumbs up for the people to be witnessing. Trust me, I know, I've been through that horror show. Saw the light and thought it was a no-go. But to top it all off, just be yourself underneath. Just look up to the skies and think about the peace, at least, because we are that beautiful person. Just to be earning what we are deserving. A little respect, is that too much for the sake of it? And to be awakening from it? No, because we've got something to prove. Coming together as a culture with nothing to lose, yeah. You don't understand me. Comprehend me, yeah, come on. You don't understand me.